All right, what's up, fam? We're at it again. How's everybody doing? I hope all is well. So, I want to take a moment before I get into the video. I want to talk about what I discovered on YouTube. I understand that Dr. Cologne did a response video about me, and he accused me of certain things like being dishonest and being foul and you know giving all this kind of misinformation, and basically he wants me to stop. But unfortunately I can't do that. As long as you're putting out misinformation, I feel obligated to do what I can to counter that misinformation. um, all I can say is, listen, I would love to have been able to get with you and work things out in a way that was more cordial. Matter of fact, I think I am cordial. I'm just calling balls and strikes. That's it. You know what I'm saying? So yes, you reached out to me. You wanted to talk. True. But I told you that the only way that I would agree to talk with you is that you would have to acknowledge that hip hop culture comes from Black culture. And since you were unable to do that, then I said to myself, well, what's the point in talking to this guy who apparently can't admit the obvious? And I'm sure to him, it's not obvious to him. So, I hate to inform you of this. I'm going to continue what I'm doing until I see maybe you have a change of heart. So, that's the way it is. So, but that's not the purpose of this video, but I just wanted to say that. The purpose of this video is to highlight three more Puerto Rican icons that have admitted that their discovery of hip hop culture was due to their interactions with Black Americans or Black people. So, without further ado, let me get into this. Now, let me just set this up real quick. Um, let's see. This video is going to deal with, a portion of this video is going to deal with this symposium at Cornell University in 2009. And some of the panelists, I don't have them listed here, but on this panel of hip hop pioneers, African Bambaataa appeared, Disco Wiz, Grandmaster Caz, Pop Master Fable, Grand Wizard Theodore, Pebbles Pooh, Joe Conzo, and Roxanne Shante. But I only highlighted the three Puerto Rican pioneers. And so what we're going to do, I'm going to play you a audio clip of their presentation. I want you to know that the whole video, I will provide a link in the description so you can see the whole symposium, the panel discussion. But I'm just going to highlight some things that I think are important as far as this video relates. So, again, the question the host is going to ask Disco Wiz, Pop Master Fable, and Joe Conzo is what their first interaction with hip hop was. So here we go. Here is Disco Wiz.
To give folks a little bit of the history of hip hop that has been least recorded, the years from 1973, on up to the dawn of the recorded era. And anybody feel free to jump in. One with your first defining hip hop moment in your life.
Well, you have to understand that for me is more profound than that. Hip hop for me is my inspiration, the soundtrack of my life, and by saying that, I'm probably saying too much because I lived a whole life before hip hop came around. Uh, how Johan touched earlier on the economic and social backdrop that we all grew up in. Times were tough. So I mean, we had to do what we had to do just to survive, just to get home, just to go to school. And we had volatile home fronts, and hip hop for me became my first structure. Before that, I was probably a young wild kid running around the Bronx aimlessly, just not knowing what I was looking for. Um, Probably before hip hop touched me, I got into organized boxing at the PAL, and one day I was downstairs in the gym, and I heard this overwhelming thumping, this sound, this earth-shattering thing, this presence, and I walked upstairs, and there were people just running around organizing stuff, and I said, "What's going on?" And the guy told me, "Cool Herc is having a jam here later on tonight." And I said, "Cool Herc." And this dude, I'm not gonna lie to you, he was a legend before I even saw him. So I mean, he already had the Bronx like mesmerized. So I said, "Really?" And the guy said, "Yeah, he's right there on stage." And I looked up the stage in my boxing gear, in my trunks, and just saw this huge two columns that reached the ceiling. And I looked at him, and he was just throwing one record after another, just practicing. And he spoke into the mic. And I'm not sure if any of you see Kool Herc. He's a immense presence. And when he said just a 1-2 check, that was it. It sent like shivers down my spine. And I was just captured by the whole moment. And I've been in that same trance now for over 33 years.
All right, so that's Disco Wiz. Okay, let's play Pop Master Fable's account.
I wonder if y'all could talk about. Well, actually, please continue with your first hip hop moments. We haven't heard from Theodore, or
Fable?
Tone, or Fable, or Shantae.
Your first hip hop moment?
Joe.
Wow. All right. Well, I was born and raised in Spanish Harlem, so yeah. But I had family in the Bronx, so we would take trips up there. And so, actually, the first jam I ever experienced, a hip hop jam, was in Spanish Harlem, where we had, I believe his name is Campy Love from the Black Spades. Who used to bring out equipment and DJ at the St. Paul Street Fair. That was on 117th Street between Lexington and Park. And what can I say? I think I was like 12 years old or something. It was like 77, and I would see the B-boys. Like, Spanish Harlem was just a heartbeat away from the Bronx. Where I grew up on 123rd Street, you could walk 5 minutes and be over that bridge, So we were experiencing very similar cultural realities, the same makeup, Puerto Ricans, blacks, a couple of Dominicans, and that's how it was. So it was very colorful. What I loved the most about my early experiences of hip hop was the fact that it was just free for everyone, all age, no dress code, come as you want. You had grandmothers out there, there was flipping burgers on the grill, it was totally a communal thing, which is, I think, was kind of missing now, except for some of the efforts by some people that do bring it to the parks, like my wife Christy and other people.
Okay, now keep in mind, I'm playing their whole answer because I don't want Cologne to say, "Oh, you're taking his comments out of context." So I'm playing their whole answer, so he can't claim that. That's what he likes to do. All right, so let's hear Joe Conzo.
Good afternoon, everybody. My first introduction to hip hop was from Tony Tone. Tony Tone and I went to high school together, and I was a high school photographer over at South Bronx High School. And I gotta be totally honest, I was a disco head. I was heavy into disco at the time. And Tony and Easy AD played on the basketball team, and they invited me to the T Connection. I'm like, what is the T Connection, and where is the T Connection? And the T Connection was a club up in the West Bronx that Tony and Kaz and Charlie Chase were putting together their group, the Cold Crush Brothers. And I remember going there that night with some friends, and it's like, it was just totally a whole different world. Nothing but break beats and that funk and soul music, and hearing the fellas on the mic And that's when I fell in love with hip hop, and I've just been a hip hop head ever since then. That's it.
Okay, so there you go. The consistent theme is that their first experience, their first hip hop experience was introduced by way of black culture. Okay? Now, so far, out of every Puerto Rican pioneer, you can go as far as talking about Whipple Whip, Ruby D, Charlie Chase, Crazy Legs. You got Joe Conzo, you got Pop Master Fable, and now you got Disco Wiz. All of them at one time or another has admitted that hip hop is culturally African American based. You remember when Crazy Legs talked about his first experience to the jam, and he was blown away. Conzo talked about how he was blown away. You're only blown away by things you've never seen before. So clearly this was a different cultural experience for both of those guys. Okay? And to a degree, Disco Wiz expressed he was in awe of the atmosphere of hip hop. So this was nothing culturally related to Puerto Ricans. So for Puerto Ricans to act like they helped build something when you can't recognize anything in hip hop that resemble Puerto Rican culture is dishonest. And this is what Dr. Colon and Randy and those who follow him are pushing, is a bunch of nonsense. So I just want to get that out of the way. All their pioneers are on record. So, like I said, Cologne cannot say I took anything out of context. I played the whole thing. And like I said, I will provide the video link to this whole panel discussion in the description. Okay? So let's move on. Now, I just really wanted to deal with that little bit right there. But now I want to talk about something I saw on his channel. Now, I don't know if you guys are aware of it, but he blocked me, and I was nothing but respectful on his channel, but he saw a need to block me regardless. So with that being said, this would kind of push me to do my own videos. I used to do videos in the past, but other things came up, so I stopped. But this kind of got me back into it. Since he don't want to correspond with me on his platform, then he left me with no other option. All right. So although I can't comment on his platform, I do watch his videos and I do read the comments. And so I ran across these series of comments by Randy, who basically he's outlining the so-called elements of hip hop, and he's giving his take on it and who deserves credit. So this is his reply to the other YouTuber who was arguing that it's black culture, which I totally agree. Okay, so he says, I'm not going to read the whole thing. So he basically says, it is common knowledge, unless you reject the facts, that the components in hip hop are multicultural. So, in other words, the elements of hip hop is multicultural. I disagree. The NYC subway bombing culture predates hip hop culture. These kids are all socioeconomic and ethnic backgrounds, to include Caucasian kids. Graffiti crews were also multi-ethnic. That's nothing culturally black about graffiti. Now, you know how I feel about graffiti. I could care less about graffiti. So if you guys, if Puerto Ricans and white people, y'all want to have graffiti, have it. I don't care about that. I like I said, I don't even think it belongs in the discussion. But one thing I will disagree with, the elements of or the components in hip hop are not multicultural. It all comes from black Americans. It all comes from black culture. The only thing that's multicultural about hip hop is the participation element is there. That's it. People of many cultures can participate and have participated, but it's not created or developed by different people of different cultures. So that's BS. Now, here is the area where Cologne and Randy are heavily invested in b-boying or breakdancing. This is the area that they're totally invested. So he's, like I said, he's giving his take on the elements of hip hop and who deserves credit. So here he says, b-boying is predominantly Puerto Rican. That doesn't mean there weren't black b-boys. There were plenty. However, the foundational steps in b-boying comes from the Puerto Ricans. So he says, if blacks want to claim to be the innovators of boyoing or going off, that's not b-boying. Those are precursor dances, not the same. Now, what's interesting, Cologne had a b-boy historian on his show who explained to him that the b-boys, the black b-boys from 72, 73, 74 were in fact going to the floor. They didn't stay on the floor. But they were in fact on the floor. And he also said that one particular era led to the other. So in other words, had it not been for the black b-boys, there would not be any Puerto Rican b-boys. For Dr. Cologne and Randy to basically dismiss the black b-boys because they didn't do a whole lot of floor work, that's disrespectful. Now imagine the b-boys today. I just recently saw a video of some of the stuff the b-boys are doing today. Puerto Ricans weren't doing that in 80 and 90. How would they feel if some of them came to them and said, well, what you guys were doing in the 80s and 90s, that's amateur stuff. That's grade school stuff, man. You know, how do you think those Puerto Ricans would feel if they heard that? They would feel disrespected, and they should. But for some reason, Cologne and Randy don't feel like it's disrespectful to disregard the people that came before them. You know, so I just found that, you know, crazy how they think. Because here's the thing, they want to push b-boying as something that Puerto Ricans created. And so therefore they can establish themselves as creators of one of the elements in hip hop. They could care less about rap. Okay, so here's the thing. Now he goes to the other topic, DJs. So he says DJs and DJ culture was pioneered by white people. Everyone else took after white people and added their own thing. Blacks didn't create the turntable, records, the mixer, etc. Those are Japanese inventions. Blacks get no credit for any of those things. Hip hop DJs took what was there, innovated the sound that would become hip hop. Hip hop DJs have never been exclusively black. Okay, so this is the tactic that Cologne and Randy does. Take things that black people were heavily invested in, created their own style, and then take that credit away and give it to someone else. In this case, give it to white people, you know. But think about the language that he's using. He says, let me go back. He says, everyone else took after white people and added their own thing. Now, I'm going to point out the hypocrisy in his statement, because what he's saying about DJ culture, he's not saying that about b-boy culture. Let me read that again. Everyone else took after white people and added their own thing. So what did Puerto Ricans do with breakdancing? They took after black people and added their own thing. And if you go to the next page, it says the DJs took what was there and innovated the sound. So the Puerto Ricans took what was there and innovated the dance. But he doesn't see the connection. He want to make a connection between what black people do and white people do. But he don't want to make the connection what Puerto Ricans did based on what black people did who preceded them. So this is the hypocrisy, and this demonstrates the bias and the anti-blackness sentiment that runs from Dr. Cologne and Randy. Okay, so, and I'm gonna get into this anti-blackness and black and racism in a minute, and I'm not scared to touch on it because it's real. Okay, so here we go. Then he talks about MCs. He says there's probably, let me go to the next page. He said this is probably the only thing that can be attributed solely to black Americans. in their culture. The reason I say this is because the pioneers of rap is universally acknowledged as Melly Mel, a black American. He developed rhyme patterns to the 1 and a 2 beat, and the rest is history. As far as I know, no Puerto Rican MC was around when Melly Mel started. All the early PR MCs and all the MCs for that matter draw inspiration from Mel. He is the pioneer hip hop MC. Blacks can claim this one all day. Just like we can claim Ruby D and White Whip all day because they were right there and they were all hip hop. There's no segregated hip hop crews. Here's what I'm saying. See, I already proved that Ruby D, Whip, and all of those guys got their inspiration from black people. They would not be in hip hop or be in that genre of music had it not been for black people. So you could claim them all day, but they're not real pioneers. Okay? So, but basically he's given MCs to black people. So that's the one element he could say, okay, yeah, black people, y'all can have that. But us Puerto Ricans, we definitely got b-boying. You know, it's BS. All right, so let me see what else. Let me see. I'm trying to see what else I want to really talk about. I mean, listen, I'm not going to read too much more. I think it's BS. All the things that Randy and Dr. Cologne deals with is trying to strip away any acknowledgement of black people in terms of giving them credit. They always seek to, in a way, to subtract anything that we've done. The people that do that are what I consider white supremacists or racists. They will do that. They won't acknowledge. I pointed out to Dr. Cologne that black people created American music, and I gave him proof of that. I bet you he will never acknowledge that. You know, so matter of fact, speaking of that, let me go to, give me 1 second. Let me pull up this YouTube video. Okay. Give me 1 second. Here we go. All right. Now let me set this up. This is called the Young People's Concert, What is American Music? Like I said before, what I discovered, black people are responsible for creating American music. That might be surprising to some, but it shouldn't be. There's a lot of things that black people have done in this country, and what we contribute to the world is breathtaking. But the powers that be see fit to keep those achievements a secret, and we have to do our due diligence as black people to find this information out and discover the greatness that we possess. And we gave America its American music. We're the foundational people that help create predominantly what American music is. And so what this video is, and I'm not going to play all of it only because it's boring, but I'm only playing it to show how white supremacy works. And in this case, this white supremacist, his name is Leonard Bernstein. He's a Jewish American composer who was given basically a lecture, a concert series to young kids. And he's talking about what is American music and how it came to be. And so he starts out, in the 19th century, where most of the composers were pretty much doing what European composers was doing. And then he talks about when America developed its own music. And not surprisingly, that's when jazz was created. But in doing so, in telling the story, he does it in a way to not mention black people. And before he tells his audience that jazz is the start of American music, he disparages Native American and black music. He calls it Negro music. And he basically lumps them together and make a disparaging remark about it. So let me play that for you, and so you can get an idea of what I'm talking about.
But it's hard for us Americans to feel that it's our music, the way a Russian feels about a Tchaikovsky symphony. In fact, those Indian and Negro themes even sound a little strange and exotic to us if we tell the truth.
See what I mean?
So we still didn't have a real American music, not yet. But now our American composers were about to graduate from grammar school and enter high school. By this time, the First World War was already over, and something new and very special had come into American music. Can you guess what it is? What was it? Right. Jazz had been born, and that changed everything. Because at last there was something like an American folk music that belonged to all Americans. Jazz was everybody's music. Everybody could dance the foxtrot back in the 20s.
Okay, let me stop it right there. So he introduced jazz as the beginning, all right? But again, he doesn't mention black people. Okay, he talks about everybody else, but not black people. Now, how do you talk about jazz? Let me set this up as well. This was done in the 50s. And so we all know, if we know anything about music history, jazz was at its highest in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. And it was predominantly black artists that were at the top of that musical dynasty. And for him not to mention people like Dizzy Gillespie, Louis Armstrong, Count Basie, Ellis Fitzgerald, Cab Calloway, Billie Holiday, Charlie Parker, Duke Ellington, for him to mention jazz and not mention one black participant shows you the extent of white racism and white supremacy that existed in the 1950s. You know, so now let me go to, I think this, let me find the marker, and he gonna basically bookmark those comments. He's gonna play a little bit of his, what he does like a presentation of what he calls jazz by these other white composers. It doesn't really sound like jazz, so I'm not gonna play it for you because it's boring. So what you're going to hear is probably the ending of one of those presentations, and then he's going to reinforce the notion that jazz has nothing to do with black people. Here.
You see, at last there was something like an American folk music that everybody understood, a real natural folk influence, jazz. Much realer and more natural than any Indian love calls or Negro spirituals could ever be.
See, there we go. How do you do that? Think about that. How do you disrespect the people who created the music? But this is what white supremacy is about. And in my opinion, while Dr. Cologne and Randy is not on that level, they go out their way to find ways to take away from black achievement. There's no question about it. So there's no question in my mind that they're anti-black. And like I said, and Randy is more so, in my opinion. So this last clip is going to talk about, let me move it over a little bit more. Whoops, one second. I want to get it right where I need to get to. There we go. This last clip, he's going to talk about all the nationalities that added to the music. And guess what group he doesn't add? You got it, black folks. Oops, let's go back. 47 went too far. Give me 1 second. Okay, let's do it. Oh boy. Oh, I know what I should have done. My bad. 47, 1 second. I should have stopped it. There we go. Let's give it a little bit. It'll come and set up. It's probably the ending of a particular presentation. Hold on. Here we go.
To the American people, our great, varied, many-sided democracy. And perhaps that's the main quality of all, our many-sidedness. Think of all the races and personalities from all over the globe that make up our country. When we think of that, we can understand why our own folk music is so complicated. We've taken it all in, French, Dutch, German, Scotch, Scandinavian, Italian, and all the rest, and learned it from one another, borrowed it, stolen it, cooked it all up in a melting pot. So what our composers are finally nourished on is a folk music that is probably the richest in the world. And all of it is American in spirit, whether it's jazz or square dance tunes or cowboy songs or hillbilly music or rock and roll or Cuban mambos or Mexican wapangos or Missouri hymn singing. It's like all those different accents we have in our speech. There's a little Mexican accent in the Texas accent, and there's a little Swedish to be heard in the Minnesota accent, and there's a little Slavic to be heard in Brooklyn, and there's a little Irish in the Boston accent, but they're all American accents. They've been absorbed. And now, as a final example of all this, I want you to hear part of the
All right, that's enough. So you see, he included every race, every nationality. I won't say every, because he didn't include Asians, but the people who are most responsible for creating American music, he totally omitted. Now, listen, black people make up 13% of the US population. This small minority group of people has given America its own music. No other race can claim that, right? Now, Randy had made a comment. He said, hip hop is not black culture because the Bronx is not black culture, or the Bronx is not comprised of all blacks. So, in other words, if blacks doesn't dominate a particular region, they can't claim credit for something. I just demonstrated that black people are 13% of the population. We gave America its own music. Certainly, Randy, a small segment of black people in the Bronx could give the Bronx hip hop. Come on, guys. This is simple. It's not hard, Randy. And you guys have to admit that this is what we did, and this is what we will continue to do. We have always created new things. We are the ones who are the most creative people on the planet. And for you to suggest that somehow you had a role in creating hip hop, that's disrespectful to black people. And so, like I told you in the beginning of this video, I'm not going to stop until this particular, nonsense is continuing to be pushed. I'm not going to stop. So I'm trying to think what else I want to say before I end this thing. Let me just look at, I wrote a couple of notes. I think that's pretty much it. Listen, I'm going to end this video. But again, if you like what you heard, if there's any information that you want in terms of American music and what black people have done to create it, if you send me something in the comments, I can give you some information. What I will do, I will leave a link to this video. If you want to see the whole thing, have at it. I just believe in providing context. Some people might say I took things out of context. So you can watch this video. Like I said, I will provide the video for Cornell University. And if you want to laugh, I found a video on one of the Dr. Cologne's posts where Randy left a YouTube link of a hip hop show where he was trying to basically prove to someone, I don't know who he was talking to, that Puerto Ricans spoke with urban vernacular, and they didn't get it from black folks. So when you hear these kids try to sound hip, it's comical. And that's another thing. Randy won't admit that all this slang come from us, come from black folks. He won't admit that. He believes it comes from urban America, or multicultural people living in the Bronx or living in the inner city, or New York culture. That's how he says it. It comes from that. He doesn't believe it comes from black culture. This guy is in denial. So is Dr. Cologne. And that's why it borders on white racism. When you can't acknowledge white supremacy, if you can't acknowledge the origins of things when it's right in front of your face, who is the coolest people on the planet? It's us. Everybody wants to be us. So it's more than likely that we are the creators of all this, all the slang, all that is defined as cool. We are the creators of that. Marketers go out their way to market to Black people because we are the trendsetters. If we deem things to be cool and in vogue, they're likely to sell more things because people look at us for direction in terms of what's cool and what's in play. That's a fact. All right. So with that being said, that's the end of this video. Like I said, like and subscribe. And until the next time.